I just turned 18 this year, and in a way it feels like for the first time in my life there's a serious expectation on me that, I need to get my life together. I need to start building my career and learning how to do maintenance on my car and, learning all of these specific skills so that I can be independent and self-sufficient and I can really just steer my own ship, be my own leader of my life in a big way. Feels like at a certain point there's just this cutoff where suddenly you're expected, you have expectations placed upon you, whether it's by society or by your family. And for a while, this feeling overwhelmed me because I felt like somehow everyone else around me, everyone, even people my age, had it figured out more than me, or were more capable than I was, or were somehow doing better than I was. I felt like I was just winging it and everyone else had some instruction manual, some plan that I wasn't, roped in on, like I wasn't aware of or something. And I felt this way for a long time until one day I started to realize that it wasn't just me, that everyone was winging it. Not just people my age, not just people who were new to the world, but everyone in my life, like my parents, all of these adults, even them, they were still sort of just winging it. Like nobody has it all completely figured out. There's still things that are difficult for everyone. There's still aspects of, this complicated world that even adults, even people who have been at it for a long time struggle with. Like maybe it's taxes. Maybe you get a flat tire and you realize that you've never replaced a tire before. Maybe it's this new, software that you have to deal with that you never had before, installing drivers and going through all this hassle. I feel like I recently traveled the world. I went to Thailand and Vietnam and, for 3 months I was out of the country, and I kind of felt like I wasn't capable of handling that, opportunity before me. Like I kind of closed up a little bit because it just felt very overwhelming, and I ended up kind of leaning on my brother more than I feel like was fair to him. But through that process I realized that truly the only way to learn is trial by fire. I didn't know much about visas and passports and airport security and different countries and currency exchanges, all these things that I just had to learn. And I realized I was only going to learn it in a situation like that. Maybe you can't always study and plan ahead and know exactly what's going to happen in a specific situation and be prepared for it. Sometimes the only way to learn is just through raw experience, just by winging it. I think before you learned how to do taxes, you probably had to sit and figure it out for a long time. Maybe some other people with more experience would help you. But everyone is constantly being faced with something new, something they've never had to experience that they have to go through. I feel like since I've gotten back home to the US, for whatever reason, I've been facing this specific type of catalyst where I feel like I'm constantly running into problems, running into giant walls. And whereas normally I feel like I wouldn't have the patience to push through the resistance and do all the research and figure it out, lately I've just been taking it on head first and just clearing away these problems. Like maybe it was me resetting this computer and I messed up something in the reset process. I had to drive my computer 30 minutes down to a repair shop and have them help me figure it out. And then I come home and I realize, it doesn't have the Wi-Fi drivers, so I had to talk with ChatGPT and find out how to install these specific drivers, and then my speaker system was being weird. Just all these little things, nothing really massive, but it feels like constantly lately I've been facing all these little inconveniences, and the only way I've been able to fight through them is just by having the will to just work on it, however long it takes. Maybe I'll be sitting there for 3 hours chatting with ChatGPT about why my Bluetooth won't work, and I try every possible option. I really go through it all. Maybe it's me trying to install Black Ops 2 through Steam and it won't start, and I have to search around the internet and go into the workshop and find other people who've had a similar issue and systematically try every single thing they outlined. It's like nobody really knows what they're doing. It's just a miracle that we have this unlimited reservoir of knowledge to pull from. Maybe my car tires right now, I have a tire pressure gauge popped up. I don't really know how to check my tire pressure or fill up my tires. It's embarrassing to admit. It's probably not that complicated, but I'm, kind of a new driver. It's just been a couple of years, and there's never been an issue I've had to deal with. And so I feel like because it's something I've never done, I'm almost overestimating it, and I'm procrastinating just doing it, just watching a YouTube video about it, figuring out what I need to do, showing up at a place, like filling up my tires again, you know what I mean? Something like that. It's like, I remember so vividly, before I could drive, before I was at that age where I was driving and I had a car, I thought driving was so complicated and difficult. I'm not sure why, but it just seemed from an outside perspective like something that would be very difficult to master, something that would take me a lifetime. And I thought everyone around me was so much more capable than me. I underestimated myself and didn't see myself as being capable of doing that someday. I was so scared in a way when I became 16 and I was suddenly allowed to start learning how to drive, because I was like, dude, you don't understand. I'm not like everyone else. I'm way less capable than all of them, and I'm not going to be able to do this. But I realized that, none of these people are as capable as we realize from the outside. I think everyone is kind of just winging it in a way. No one has it completely figured out. We just go through the motions and, figure it out as we run along. And there's some amount of experience that comes along with that. The older you are, the more challenges you've had to face that just came up, and you just had to face them and figure it out. I've realized I've learned a lot more about certain computer things over the last few days as I've dealt with drivers for my Wi-Fi chip and my Bluetooth and my computer and my Focusrite sub-low for my microphone stand. Just all these random little things, technical problems. I've started to understand it a little bit better, and I realized this was never something I was going to purposely go out of my way to learn, because I'm not genuinely that interested in the specifics of computers and things. But when I was forced to, when I was in that situation where there was a problem to solve and I had to be the one to solve it, and I had to do the research and learn certain things to get through it, I realized, that is the advantage of having problems in your life. That is the advantage of having challenges, is, you might be a very linear person without them. You might not be very well-rounded, because I think the most well-rounded people are, in a way, those individuals that had to learn to become flexible because of the multitude of different situations they were faced with in their life that required them to step outside of themselves, beyond themselves, and learn something new, trial by fire in the moment. It's like if a friend asks me to go play a sport with him I'd never played, I could say that, I haven't played it and I'm not that down, or I could just be like, hey, I guess I'll figure it out. I think for a long time I didn't have enough faith in myself to believe I would figure it out. I didn't have enough faith in myself to think that, like everyone else, I could learn and improve and grow as a person and, master these skills that are required of me, like taxes and all that, And at a certain point I realized, you're being too hard on yourself. It's not quite as complicated and difficult as it seems on the outside. And if everyone else can do it, you can too. Because the reality is that nobody has it all figured out. And you don't have to either. It's okay to take it slow. I feel like when I became an adult, suddenly it was all at once I felt like I had to have it all figured out. But that's not really the case. It's not as if a single year separates you from being the master of all things in this physical reality, or being a kid. It's okay to take your time as you learn, but you need to be keeping your eye on the ball in a way. You need to be continuing to move forward, because otherwise you might genuinely find yourself a little bit left behind. You might genuinely not know how to, repair your flat tire when you're 50 years old, and maybe you can escape that forever. Maybe you can pass off that work onto somebody else. But I think there's something really powerful about, learning to take on a variety of different problems on your own, when it comes up. And it's not always some massive thing. It can just be a little inconvenience that takes a couple hours to, sort through and find the right information online. And those moments, although frustrating, although they seem tedious and pointless, I think in the long term, sometimes I look back on those moments, those giant 6-hour side quests I was set on by some tiny mistake I made, and I've realized that I am grateful it happened, because it genuinely did improve me as a person, even a little bit. And I think those are the things that are worth living for. And with that, I'll leave you guys off.